Welcome to this live feed. How is everybody? Hoping everybody is very well. We are speaking to friendships this evening, or perhaps this morning, this afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. Thank you so much for being here. We often get so caught up either in ourselves or we get so caught up in our intimate, beloved or erotic relationships that we sometimes forget the importance of our friendships, of our platonic friendships, and the role that these friendships play in our lives. Now, good morning, Melissa. Lovely to have you here. Thank you. As you're coming on, please let me know that you're on. I can't see everybody that is coming on. So number one in the comment box would be fantastic. Number one in the comment box, please. And let me know that you're here. Katrina, hello, how are you? And that would be beautiful. Thank you. So, friendships. Why do we need friendships? Why are they important? How does it serve us? How do friendships serve us? How do quality friendships serve us? And the title of this particular live feed is Determining Detrimental Friendships. Because sometimes we engage in friendships or we have friendships that actually don't serve us and do not serve our highest good. They do not serve what we need in this life, and actually perhaps there's a misalignment of values and we cannot serve the other either. So we begin then to evaluate our friendships, because our social circles are so important for so many different reasons. And I'm going to go into some of those reasons, of course, this evening or today in this live feed. And I also want to speak to, there's so much we're going to speak to this evening. But why do we build friendships? Multiple reasons why we build friendships. But remember, in this, whilst I'm speaking to friendships and whilst we're having a conversation around this, please know that Beck, how are you? All friendships, we are in a constant flux in life. Natalie, good evening. We are constantly transmuting and transforming based on so many factors. We are transmuting and transforming our ideas, our beliefs, our behaviors, our posturings, the way we feel about certain things and people in the world, the way our models of reality are always changing as well as we begin to shape who we are as people, as we begin to move through the world in very particular ways, as we're exposed to new information, new experiences. Our perception of what is real and our perception of what is important to us will be in flux. Therefore, our relationships are open to this flux as well, of course inclusive of our friendships. So we may get together, we may attract or align certain friendships at certain times in our lives. At very particular times in our lives, we have a particular set of interests, for example, and we will draw into our lives people that either support those interests or have a very similar interest, or there's a resonance somewhere there. There's a resonance in our values, in a shared purpose, there's a resonance in interests, and it can vary, yeah? So we bring these people into our lives, and of course we enter their lives, and there's a connection there. And we begin to explore that connection. We begin to explore what that is like. Sue, how are you? Thank you for being here. And we begin to explore the nature of that connection. And of course we determine whether there is a resonance and a suitability in that connection and in that friendship. And from there, we begin to look at the long-term viability of the friendship. Now, this generally happens unconsciously. It's not something that happens at a conscious level per se. But it's super important to understand that in the background, hi Michelle, how are you? Lovely to have you here. Thank you for being here. I was going to send you a message before. I'll send you a message after this live feed. Yeah, it's so cold here, actually, Sue. I wish I was in Bali now as well. No, it's nice. It was a cold day today here. Very cold for Western Australian Perth weather anyway. And living very close to the ocean, I think it's even a little bit colder than usual. So where was I? I was on the connection piece with friendships. So we will flux, and we will as we are developing and cultivating new friendships, we will be asking ourselves unconsciously and consciously, whether these friendships or whether this friendship is serving us. Now, why are friendships so important? In fact, the entirety of our environment, what we surround ourselves with, whether it be physical objects, whether it be material objects, whether it be our dwelling, whether it be people, whether it be our vocation, whatever it may be, when we surround ourselves with a particular environment, it influences us. It influences our behaviors, our ideas, our thoughts, our belief systems, our models of reality, how we wish and choose to move through the world. And it not only impacts, it influences that as well. And it can sometimes, if strong enough, if it can sway us strong enough, it can completely transform our dispositions on life. So what we thought was deeply important at one stage of our life may not be, and that can be very much influenced by our environment. Yeah. So Auntie Tech says genetics play a massive part too. Yeah, to some extent, genetics can predispose us to particular behaviors. It's our environment that can trigger the genetic tone within us that can then allow our physiology to adapt and to change as well. And there's a great deal of research on epigenetics and what the effect that actually has on the human sphere and the human condition and our relationships, our relating to self, our relating to ideas and beliefs, our relating to the world around us effectively. So that's a really interesting subject matter to look into, is epigenetics actually, yeah. So, but we look at our social circles. Now, social circles are so important. We all like to be liked, okay? So these are some of the reasons why we build and cultivate friendships. We all like to be liked. We all like to feel connection. Feeling connection, feeling supported in friendship, or feeling supported in a social, cohesive circle is so important for our internal wellness and well-being and our sense of self-worth as well. Now, it's important to understand, of course, it's so important to understand that if we are constantly and consistently deriving our sense of self-worth outside of ourselves, and we are placing who we are and the wonder of who we are and the way we value ourselves, the way we believe in ourselves outside of ourselves, we're setting ourselves up for disaster to some extent, eventually anyway. So it's important, of course, to derive a sense of self-worth, or a solid, strong, connected sense of self-worth from within. Of course, that will be influenced from our environment, hence why it's so important. The environment that we choose is well aligned with our values, is well aligned with our purpose and with our hearts and what we truly desire from life. That becomes so crucial for our own growth and our own development. Now, I hope you can begin to understand that. And if you do, place a number 2 in the comment box, people, and let me know that we are in alignment here with this particular essence of conversation that we're having. And of course, if you're just coming on, place number 1 in the comment box. And if you're new to these live feeds and you've never been here before, please place new in the comment box. Let us know that you're here. The tribe and the community can definitely welcome you and wish you many blessings for being here, that's for sure. And I have a question for you as well, whilst you're placing number 2s in the comment box and you're thinking about what we're speaking to here, is in your own friendships, have you had friendships perhaps for, Melissa, welcome. Thank you for being here, Melissa. If we all welcome Melissa, that would be wonderful. James, welcome, brother. Good to have you here. Emma, you're not new, but you're new this evening, right? A question for you all out there to really begin to feel into, what are some of the most important reasons that you seek friendship? Is it for safety? Is it for protection? Is it for, when I say safety, like emotional safety, even physical safety? Is it for protection? Is it to feel supported? Is it to gain deeper reflective awareness on self? Is it to purely be liked? And Michelle says, definitely our environment is so crucial to nurturing us. There's another question actually. Do we seek friendship primarily for nurturing? Why is it that we seek friendship? And I'm asking you that, I'm putting it to you. Why is it that you seek friendship? And it could be a multitude of reasons. It's not necessarily just one reason. But what are the primary core reasons? And there are some that I just mentioned then, that you would seek friendship, alignment in friendship. Depth in friendship. Maybe it is that. Maybe it's to seek depth. Maybe it's to find clarity. What is it that draws you towards friendship and cultivating real meaningful friendships. You know, I'm a keen observer of human behavior, and I'm a keen observer of our social constructs. And it becomes very sad for me. I feel very blessed and fortunate in my life that I have cultivated some amazing friendships in my time and continue to do so. I have had friends that I have physically known for 20 years and are still very much in my life and play a crucial role, dramatic role in my life. And there are friends that I have recently met and in terms of time have not known them that long comparatively, yet I feel so bonded and connected to them. And I feel very blessed, and I'll get to what I'm about to say in a moment, but some of the comments here: commonality, love and compassion. What else? Why nurturing? Why else do we seek friendship? Why else do we wish to connect with others? And I'll give you a clue here on this, and this is really important. One of the probably unconscious reasons for most of us is why we seek deep, profound, meaningful, articulated friendship is because we need connection. Or we're relational social beings and we need connection. And B, we cannot see all the parts of ourselves that need a light to be shone upon. Seldom says belong or belonging. We need others with an external connection and growth from Kim. We need others from an external perspective to assist us in understanding ourselves with greater depth and clarity. Now, that works really well when those people are trusted, revered, respected sources of information. So we have to be deeply selective with who we choose to be our friends, who we choose to bring into our circle, our immediate circle of influence, what we wish to expose ourselves to, whom we wish to expose ourselves to. If you agree with that and you resonate with that, place number 3 in the comment box. James says, I like to think we become friends with people because we hope they will help us grow in some way and better ourselves. James, that's beautiful, brother. That really is. And that's a very aware, conscious comment. And your thoughts around that, I believe, are very articulate and very, very accurate in the sense that and it's really in alignment with what I just said. We really wish people to be able to reflect to us what we cannot see within ourselves that can assist us to grow and expand not only our consciousness but also open our hearts. And it's in that conscious relating, it's in that beautiful open relating. And if we of course are humbled enough to receive that information and to be observant of what is occurring in our environment, if we are humble and open and in humility enough to allow others to reflect onto us who we are and the parts of ourselves that we cannot see, but they can see from that varying vantage point, we really grow and expand. And it's in that growth and expansion that we begin to realize the meaning of life. We begin to connect to life in such a substantial, deep and profound manner. And for me, one of the grandest reasons for being alive, for experiencing life, for having consciousness is to grow and expand. To me, when we're speaking to conscious relationships of any form, whether they be intimate, erotic, familial, friendship, social, colleague-based, vocation-based, it's irrelevant. Whatever relationship we have, it is to that relationship we are there to help the other sentient being grow as we are also wanting to grow ourselves. That's very important. Emma says, can't I befriend anyone? Sometimes I feel sorry for people who may be lonely, etc., so I become friends with them. So we're actually going to talk to that very, very soon, Emma. That's a really interesting point that you've just made. And it goes back a little, ties in a little bit with what I was going to say before, but I went on a tangent as I do, is that I was speaking to how blessed I feel in my life with the friendships that I have in my life and what they have taught me about myself and what they have taught me about life in general. And what I find has been deeply, deeply important is really valuing that, acknowledging that. Because when we acknowledge life, we fortify the value of that experience. So I'm going to repeat that. When we acknowledge the experiences that we have in our lives, the teachings, etc., we fortify and imprint within our own being the value, the lessons, the teachings of that experience. And if you can agree with that, give me a number 4 in the comment box. Yeah, the acknowledgement part is so important. So that's why I have mentioned that blessing, that gratitude that I have, because that's a form of fortifying. Because to be grateful, you must acknowledge, of course, and without acknowledgement, we cannot be grateful. But I see many people in this world that don't have those deep, intimate friendships, that don't have those deep, intimate connections, and there is something missing from their consciousness. There is something missing from their expressive nature. There is something missing from the depth of who they are. There is something not quite on point with them. They feel that they are disconnected, that they are almost fragmented in life because we don't have those support networks. So from an evolutionary perspective, in a really simple way, as we've evolved as foragers and hunter-gatherers and clans and tribes and so forth, we have really depended, and we go back millions of years, of course, we've really deeply dependent on the social cohesion of the groups that we are a part of. In other words, there's been some form of deep connection, there's been some form of, and for connection to take place, there must be trust. So for trust to be present, we must begin to know each other at some level. And it's in that knowing that we're able to cultivate trust. It's in that exploration of self and the other, and knowing what value the other brings to our lives, and of course knowing the value that we bring to their lives. Now, as we go back further and further, the value that we brought to another and what they brought to us was very simplified, and it was more in the form of survival. It was more in the form of brainstem stuff, very unconscious, very animalistic, very primal. It was, I'll help you survive physically, I'll keep you warm, you help me hunt, and so forth. I'm being very simplistic here, but there was an understanding and a connection. Now, as we've culturally evolved, so to speak, and we've become more intelligent, we've become more astute, we've become more connected, we're hyper-connected these days, we have begun to not complicate, but develop more intricate connection styles. So we are more aware of what we are bringing into our lives in terms of what we're surrounding ourselves with, of course inclusive of our friendships. So we should, or we could, treat friendships in a very similar way we treat intimate partnerships or intimate relationships. There is a seeking period where we seek a particular friendship, and there then is a courting period where we court the friendship, and of course the other courts us as well. And what does that mean? That means we are testing each other, so to speak. We are sussing each other out. We are evaluating each other's needs. We are evaluating who we are and what we can bring to the friendship, the value that we can bring to the friendship. And this often happens unconsciously, but it can very much happen consciously as well. And in fact, when it does happen consciously, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful journey, a beautiful process that transpires, because what happens is it becomes very transparent. The whole journey, the immersive journey of connecting to self becomes deeply, deeply transparent. And it's beautiful because there is no bullshit. It's just a very open, inclusive, congruent, authentic relationship that is taking place. Some comments here. I want to read some of these comments. So let's go through these. Carol says, the popular belief concerning cosmic relationships seems to be that a cosmic partnership is the one person in your life whom you are meant to be with, romantically, friends and work. But while on my own, I can't read the rest. Sorry, Carol. But that's a very interesting point. When you're speaking to cosmic partnership, are you speaking to sacred union? Are you speaking to twin flames? Are you speaking to soulmates? What is it that you're referring to exactly? Which is interesting. So if you can expand on that, wonderful. And if we get to it, that's great. And Emma says, I just don't like to turn anyone in need away. And that's fair enough, Emma, but what you need to ask yourself, and this leads us into the next phase of this discussion with respect to friendships, is whilst that's the case, those people in need, are you able to serve them in the best possible way without hindering your health, without upsetting your vibe, so to speak, without breaking stride in momentum for your life's journey as well, which is really important. So when we look at courting friendships, we have to understand, like anything in life, there needs to be an element of self that is articulated through that friendship. And what does that mean? That means that we have to be clear on our values. We have to be clear on our purpose. We have to be clear on who we are and what we want in life and what our interests are. And then be clear on what we can give, what capacity we feel we have to give. Some people, depending on the stages of life that they're in, have an infinite capacity to give so much. And other times when they're in need, or when they're deeply reflective, or some erroneous circumstances occurring in their lives, they cannot give to the capacity that they would love to give, that they would love to be of service to another. Therefore, it is imperative that we know ourselves. And here's the essence of it. It's knowing self in as much fullness as possible, in as much depth as possible, that assists us in drawing and bringing in the well-aligned or right people in our life. So when we have this knowledge, this gnosis, this wisdom around self, we are able to articulate with greater clarity the types of friendships we need in our lives in that point in time, in that space in time. And if you can all agree with that alignment piece, that value piece, knowing self with great depth and great connection, if you can resonate with that, please place a number 5 in the comment box. And Emma says, that's where I guess I need to start being a little selfish and put my needs first. Or Emma, absolutely, because when you come from a place of selfishness, but healthy selfishness, so the intent is, of course, to be of service to other people, but to also service your own soul's journey, your own evolution of self, your own path and what your needs are in that space and time. And when you're able to do that, you begin to grow and develop and cultivate a deeper sense of trust of yourself. You begin to cultivate greater insight into who you are and greater foresight, your ability to be able to see beyond your current circumstances with greater clarity, yeah? So that becomes deeply interesting for us as well. So first of all, why would we want to break up in a friendship? Okay, because again, we want to treat friendships like we treat intimate relationships. Michelle says, being centered in self invites others to center in themselves too. Absolutely. And I look at that as a form of sovereign leadership. If you are able to live an inspired life according to your authentic values, guess what happens? Those around you will also be drawn to either step up to that inspiration, or they'll move out and away from your life. And it doesn't mean that they're bad people, or you're a bad person, or you're selfish, or they are selfish. We needn't label with such distinction and definition. We just simply need to understand that is an intricate part of life, and that is how we move through the world to some degree. Okay, so it becomes interesting to observe oneself and how we react in those situations, and know that as we are bringing people into our lives and people are leaving our lives, that there is a deep purpose to that, and a part of that is consciously caused by ourselves, and parts of it are unconsciously caused by ourselves, and of course by the other as well. And it becomes a very complex, intricate web of interaction that takes place, relational interaction. But how do we break up with our friends if we need to? When those friendships are toxic, or those friendships are detrimental to our health, when those friendships are not serving us, when we cannot be of service in those friendships, perhaps we are a detriment in that friendship, and we are not able to serve the other with great efficacy and great care and great inspiration and love. This can happen sometimes. So how do we break up with friends? Well, firstly, to be very real, we need to be aware of ourselves, and we need to be deeply truthful with where we are in life. And sometimes it can be very difficult to let go of friendships, because part of that threat analysis comes in that stems from our unconscious animal primal self, and tells us that if we let go of this friendship, we are potentially endangering ourselves to some degree, because we've invested so much time and so much energy and so much love and so much care, and they know so much about us and we know so much about them. Why can't we make it work? What's going on? But sometimes friendships are just no good for us. Sometimes particular friendships, they don't serve us, and we don't serve them. And acknowledging that can be a really hard pill to swallow. It can be a really difficult truth to absorb within our psyche and within our consciousness. And our emotions they flux, they run wild. It becomes so challenging to even begin to digest emotionally the letting go of a friend that we once felt so close with. Why did that friendship break up? Why is that friendship dissipating? Why is it disappearing? Why is it breaking down? What have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong? Why is that person behaving that way? Why are they hurting me? Why are they not considering me? Why have they not contacted me? Why am I losing faith in this friendship? And this happens, right? These are some of the questions that we ask ourselves when friendships begin to distance from themselves. And it's difficult, it's really, really challenging. And it's in those times that we need to center ourselves, that we need to connect to breath, that we need to ground, that we need to be with earth, that we need to perhaps remain in some stillness and silence. It's perhaps that in this space, we need to just be with ourselves, just be connected to who we are and our needs, and be very clear on what our needs are. As a primary focus, we can always come back to the dynamic of the friendship. It can be difficult to let those long-term friendships go if they are a struggle, if they are causing us depth of pain. That's very lovely of you, Daniela. Thank you for being here. So how do we break up with friendships, whether they be short-term or long-term? That's not too relevant, actually, because we wish to maintain integrity in self, in every single relationship that we are a part of. In every relationship that we are a part of, we wish to connect authentically and in integrity in that relationship, whether we are entering the relationship, exiting the relationship, or just in the relationship, just a part of that friendship. Because every human being deserves, no matter who they are and what they've done and who they've been, every relationship, every friendship, every individual deserves that dignity, because it's not only for them, it's for us. Because when we harbor hate or anger or fear, we feel that hate, anger and fear. I did a live feed, it was a couple of months ago maybe now, on forgiveness being an inside job. That's the title of the live feed. You can find it on my YouTube channel, S.Sifandos. But it's an inside job. How we feel is an inside job. So if we choose to forgive and release, we're releasing tension within ourselves. It does not mean we do not set physical, psychological, spiritual, and emotional boundaries for ourselves, or what we will tolerate and what we will not. And of course, if behavior is very negative in a relationship or in a friendship, it's not, and it doesn't serve us, it's not for us to remain in that friendship because we want to be nice, or there's a belief system that we must express niceties in that relationship. Not at all. We have to be very clear that that friendship may be coming to an end, and how we set those boundaries. It's not so much even what we do. It's not the ending of the friendship or the conscious choice to let that friendship go and release it. It's how we do that. And how we do that must be in integrity to ourselves and in authenticity to ourselves. We must come from a place of love and ask ourselves the question, what would authentic love do now? What would love do now? That's a beautiful question to ask. And if you can resonate with that being something of value to you, pop a number 6, place a number 6 in the comment box. I'm just going to go through some of these questions or some of these. Carol says, soulmates are two souls from the same soul group, meaning that when everything was infinitely connected before the fall into the physical dimensions, these two souls were one. Soulmates have met many lifetimes. That's beautiful, Carol. Yeah, absolutely. And big believer in that. Yeah, definitely. And friendships can fall into soulmate categories as well. Yeah. And there is an interconnectedness that takes place in life. Spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, neurologically as well. We have this tremendous capacity for our brains to couple. Our brain coupling is the term, and our brain waves can sync when we're in this beautiful awe and rapture and connection to each other and to ourselves. And it's really quite powerful actually as well. But we're speaking to, and that's what happens when we connect with each other, when we're learning about each other, when we're growing into each other as friends, and we're developing that friendship, cultivating that connection, that similarity, that trust, that bonding, that yearning to be in each other's company, to grow from each other, to spend time with each other. But speaking to that conscious uncoupling, that breaking up in friendships can be really challenging. So if we come from a place of integrity and we're open with our communication, that's really important as well. Like, we have to be deeply open with our communication. We have to be able to express ourselves fully in life and in our friendships, and with honor and with honesty and with respect and reverence for the other, because there would have been times in that friendship where we did care for each other, where there was deep love, where there was admiration and respect for each other. And we want to be coming back to that. We want to be focusing on that as we are realizing that this friendship no longer serves us for whatever reasons we believe it no longer serves us. So Emma, wishing you many blessings on your journey at the moment. I see some of the I can't see all the comments all the time, but I see some, and obviously you're transitioning through something. So wishing you many blessings on your journey and hoping that this is being of service and assistance to you in some capacity. So we want to understand, well, how do we notice relationships that how do we notice relationships that are toxic? How do we notice relationships that are detrimental to our health or no longer serve us? And the thing is, relationships that are really overtly toxic, or friendships that are really overtly damaging to us, friends that treat us bad, friends that undermine us, friends that have this change of attitude towards us, that are nasty, that are short with us, that have a temper with us, that don't serve our values. And there's so many different examples. They are just some, okay? They're easy to spot. They're not easy to transition through, and the emotions that accompany that can be deeply challenging, but they're easy to notice. It's the ambivalent friendships that are more difficult, that are more challenging to notice. It's the uncertainty in those friendships. So how do we distinguish what friendships are uncertain? And it's really quite simple. If your friends aren't happy that you're happy, that's a sign that the friendship isn't exactly where it needs to be in terms of growth and expansion. Of course, we grow and expand from every experience, but if I'm going to repeat this, if your friends are unhappy that you're happy, if your friends are angry that you are in a joyous or blissful state of being, if your friends are unhappy that you are succeeding, that you are achieving, that you are being, that you are living your truth, that you are living authentically, that you are expressing yourself in a congruent, honest, open, respectful, inclusive manner, if they are aberrant against this behavior, it's a good sign that maybe that friendship is no longer in alignment with you. And if you can resonate with that, place a number 7 in the comment box. And maybe you've had those types of friendships before that are quite ambivalent, that are quite uncertain, that are quite covert. And maybe speaking to those in this, in your comments here would be very beneficial to many of us, of course, that are watching, and many of the tribe that are watching as well. And if you're just coming on, beautiful people, place a number 1 in the comment box. And if you're new to these live feeds, please place new in the comment box so that the tribe can welcome you. So there's the subtlety in those friendships. Yeah, if they're not supporting us, and if they're in disdain because we are happy, then maybe those friendships aren't for us. Then maybe that's telling us that those friendships aren't for us. And we know, like how many of you out there know deeply that you have some friendships that there's a subtlety in disconnection there, and you know something's not quite in alignment, yet it's really difficult to move through it. It's really difficult to let that friendship go. It's difficult to pass that friendship because you've got history. We associate so much with history. We associate so much with time, don't we? We value time so much. Or how long have you known this person for? The more you've known them, generally the closer the friendship, the associations are made in that way. Not always, but often, right? So we wish to understand, how do we actually notice this? So how do we become more intuitive? How do we connect more to who we are? How do we connect more to what we are noticing in our friendships? There's an interesting study that was done, I can't remember by which university. They basically placed sweat pads under people that were on a treadmill and absorbed the sweat. And they placed sweat pads, people jumping out of a plane for the first time. And obviously different sweat, or is it? Same sweat, different sweat, we'll see. So I'll continue with the story. And then they placed random individuals under an fMRI scan. And they asked them to smell the different sweat pads. So sweat pads from the runners on the treadmill and sweat pads from the individuals that jumped from the plane. And all of the individuals that were smelling the sweat pads from the people that jumped out of the plane, their own fear responses started activating in their own brain. That's interesting. So when those people were sweating, jumping out of the plane, that sweat, so to speak, physiologically was associated with fear. And they picked that up neurologically. They didn't know, they just started firing. They didn't consciously feel scared, but the areas of the brain, i.e. the amygdala, that fire really hard when we are in danger or trouble or experiencing fear, they started activating when smelling these sweat pads. So it's interesting that we can actually smell fear. We can smell emotions, so to speak, okay? Women do this exceptionally well. And women do this exceptionally well for a number of reasons. They are greater intuitive. Their intuitive senses, the intuitive centers of their brains are far more developed than male intuitive centers. And probably because a number of reasons, as again, evolutionary reasons, the way they've had to survive and read the environment, the way that they have had to care for the infant and receive information from the infant during pregnancy and outside of pregnancy as well. But there's been a number of reasons why that would happen. But we're actually able to smell emotion. So if we are able to tap into this by acknowledging, remember, acknowledgement fortifies the value and the wisdom. Nevio Chao, how are you, my friend? It fortifies the wisdom and the learning and the teachings from that experience. We're able to pay closer attention to the needs of ourselves, to our own needs and who we are, and what we actually need from a friendship. And we can begin then to notice the subtleties in that friendship. And is that friendship evolving as a friendship? And is that a friendship evolving us? And are we of value to the other person in that friendship? And then we even look at group dynamics as well. And how are we all interacting and intermingling in that group dynamic? Are we of service, deep service to each other? So, we can smell threats, we can smell fear, we can smell emotions, but we sometimes cannot interpret it accurately. We cannot interpret it correctly, and we don't want to, because we get worried, we become scared that we're going to lose a friendship, because loss to the human psyche is not healthy. Loss is associated with scarcity. Scarcity is the antithesis of abundance. If we are in a scarce state of being, our survival is threatened. If you can resonate with that, pop a number 8 in the comment box. Yelena, welcome. Lovely to have you here. So we begin then again to connect to ourselves in a very different way. We begin to connect to ourselves in a manner that allows us to experience deeper truth and greater revelation in self. And we become more astute of the types of relationships that we have, the forms of relationships that we have, and the way we move through relationships. But it deeply does come down to knowing self. It does come down, the more we know what we value in life, the more we know what is important to us, the more we know how we wish to be and move through life, the more articulate we will be in defining our relationships or our friendships, and drawing in friendships that are aligned with those values that we hold so dear to ourselves. And what happens is that becomes a very powerful, potent mixture for connection and creating abundance in life and manifesting exactly what it is that we wish to manifest in life, our purpose. And in that space there, we are able to be better versions of ourselves. Yeah, in that space there, we're able to be better versions of ourselves. And that's what life is about. It is about growth and expansion. It is about learning and then growing from those teachings that we're exposed to, growing from those values that we're exposed to, and being able to connect to ourselves in such a way that is true to what we wish to experience in life. Thank you, Daniela. So really it's about being mindful. No problem, Yama. Being mindful of what we need, being mindful of who we are, being mindful of what we wish to prioritize in life and what we wish our purpose to be, and then live in alignment with that purpose. And when we do, we filter out what we don't need in life. And we minimize, or we rather not minimize, sorry, we limit what we bring in, the quantity of what we bring into our lives in terms of our friendships, but we increase the quality of those friendships. And it's the quality of those friendships that provide us with depth and substance. And in that depth and substance, we're able to connect to ourselves with greater efficacy, greater love, and greater truth. That bonds us deeply. It bonds us to our friends, and it bonds us to ourselves and our own life path. So friendship is more than just a dance of varying emotions. It is also a deep chemical reaction that takes place physiologically, neurologically. It is something that evolves us spiritually. But we have choices to make, and the more conscious those choices are in life, the more well aligned our path is. So we've spoken to some interesting points this evening. We've spoken openly to how we define friendships, how we build friendships, how we cultivate friendships, how we court friendships, how we let friendships go, how we break up from friendships, how we begin to identify the subtlety in the ambivalent friendships that aren't actually healthy for us. And we do bring it back to that relationship to self. Yeah, we do really bring it back to that relationship to self, which is important. So beautiful, lovely people, I want to say good evening. I want to say thank you so much for being here. Of course, please share this video if you feel it is of value. Please share this video with your loved ones, with your friends, Facebook and so forth, if you feel that someone may benefit from this. And of course, I will again see you shortly for another live feed in the next few days. In the interim, be kind to yourself and begin to pay attention to what it is that stimulates you in friendships, what you offer, what you bring to friendships, and begin to evaluate your friendships. Begin to look deeply into your friendships and how they serve you and how they serve your highest values. And of course, as always, one is always glad to be of service. I thank you so much for being here, and I shall see you again very soon. Many blessings. Thank you.